Hello and welcome. My name is Lexi and today we're taking a look at the new Dior Summer collection. So I didn't pick up everything from this collection, but I picked up one of the two eyeshadow palettes, one of the two limited edition highlighters, and one of the limited edition nail polishes as well. So there are two highlighters, two eyeshadow palettes, four nail polishes. There's a tinted lip balm. There is a new lip tint and three new lip maximizers that are part of this collection. However, the lip maximizers and the lip tint have not been released yet here in the US. So far this is what I have, but I am also interested in some of those lip products that have not yet arrived. So out of the eyeshadow palettes, there are two. One of them is warm and one of them is a little bit cooler. So this is one I picked up. It's a cooler one. It's 233 Eden Rock. And just like all other Dior palettes, we get this plastic tray as well as a dual-ended foam tip applicator and brush applicator. And this is the palette. So let's start off with some swatches here. And I tried to leave a lot of the embossing so you could kind of see, but it does have like a circle here that says Christian Dior, at the top and at the bottom half. And then of course it says Dior in the middle. So this first shade here, you can see is kind of a light, soft, more of an orangey beige. There's a little bit of beige in there, but it's kind of like a soft mandarin orange with just a touch of brown in there. The next shade here is going to be an ivory, and it looks pretty much like a straight up ivory until you swatch it, and then you can see that the sheen actually is going to be slightly golden. So there is a golden hue to this shade that you can really see when you swipe it. So if you pat it on, if you're doing a finger application, you'll see it that way. But if you're just patting it on lightly with like a fluffy brush, you won't really notice the gold so much. And you can see both of these will have a bit of a satin sheen. Now this middle shade here, I really like this shade. This is kind of a soft, warm fawn brown. It's like they took a cooler brown and infused just a little bit of gold in there. So there is a tiny bit of golden sheen to this one as well. But because it's sort of like the base started off cool, this is still going to be a pretty neutral brown. It leans slightly warm. And then we have the blue. And then this is the reason I bought this palette. I thought this looks so pretty. So here's the blue. You can see this is mostly matte. It's a matte blue. There's a little bit of a sheen to it, but definitely not as much of a sheen as the other three shades we've swatched so far. And you can see it's kind of a smoky blue. And if you look at the tail end here, you can kind of see that there is a bit of a gray base to this. And last up, we have this kind of milk chocolate brown shade here. I really like this. Again, we have this cooler brown, but there's a little bit of golden sheen to it. So a little bit of like golden micro glitter in there. So overall, I have to say I really like the colors in this palette. I think it's a great color story. You can use the blue as an accent. You can skip the blue and you've got great neutrals. I think it's a really great, pretty much an everyday palette, and the blue, the addition of the blue is really what makes it summer. Otherwise, this is just a fantastic everyday palette. However, the blue really makes me think of the ocean. So putting all of these shades together, we kind of have like sand and sand dunes with like the ocean and so forth, maybe some like beach wood and so forth. So that's kind of what I think of when I see it. And then I picked up one of the limited edition highlighters. I actually don't have any of the Dior highlighters in the Dior Forever line. So this is my first one. We do have the patent leather, or on the outside we do get a little plastic cover mirror inside, and this is the shade 002 Coral Cruise. Now this is going to be shimmery. There is glitter in this highlighter. You can see if you pile it on like this, you're going to get this peachy coral sheen to it. Again, you still have kind of a little bit of that golden top coat on there. If you put it on a little bit softer, so you're brushing that out, you're still going to see a little bit of that glitter, and it's just a little bit more subdued, almost like a rose gold in that case. And there are 4 new nail polishes. I picked up the blue one. This is number 909, Eden Rock. It is a limited edition, just like the other items. And this is what I have on my nails right now. Now, these are a little messy. I was painting them, and then I heard a blood-curdling scream. And that was my daughter who was, we were outside, and she got a bee stuck in her hair. So I end up smudging the nails, and I haven't gotten around to fixing them or cleaning them up yet. So this is the color, but it is a bit messy, and you can see that it goes very nicely with the swatch. Actually, when you put on just one coat of the nail polish, the first coat looks a lot like this. It's going to be kind of sheer, and you see more of that, like a little bit more gray in there. And then when you put on the second coat, it looks like this. So this is 2 coats. Now let's go ahead and take a look at some eye swatches and the eye demo for today while we talk about that, and then we'll move on to the highlighter as well, and we'll come back for some comparisons. So just a few details about this palette. It is 7 grams of product, and this one is made in France. Again, it's limited edition. It's number 233, Eden Rock, and there's a 6-month shelf life, which is the same for all other Dior eyeshadows. So they always use a 6-month shelf life. Now, as we're looking at these shades, this first one is kind of a soft mandarin orange. There's a little bit of beige mixed in there, so it's not that orange. But I think it's a really nice shade. You can put this on very softly, very lightly. It does remind me of some other, shades that we've seen before from Dior. And I think it's nice. It's a soft satin sheen on here, but more of a, not quite a full-fledged satin. It's more of a satin matte, but heavier on the satin. And then the ivory shade, this is the only one that I don't love in this palette. I think it's fine. I actually like the idea that it's ivory with a little bit of this like gold touch to it that you can see as a sheen. However, I do find this one to be just a little chalky. So, it's not that it's chalky and hard to use, but I feel like it looks a little chalky on the skin. So it's not my favorite. And moving on, the middle shade is probably my favorite in this palette because I love the sheen on here. This is definitely going to be a satin sheen. And again, we have kind of that warm fawn brown, and I think it's really pretty. And you can see a little bit of cooler notes kind of mixed in if you look at it, but it is going to be like neutral leaning warm. Moving on to the blue, I think the blue is a really nice shade. And in these eye swatches here, you can see for all of the swatches, I did the brush side on the right with the Sonia G soft shader, finger application on the left with this blue shade. I also wanted to see what kind of impact it would have using a wet brush. So I did dampen my brush on this and I tried it out. You can see that it will make it just slightly deeper, but honestly, I don't think it's a significant enough difference to, go through the trouble. Overall, this blue I think is really nice. If you just want like a bit of a blue or gray kind of shade, just softly pat it on with like a fluffier brush and you're just gonna kind of get a hint of blue. And if you want to actually see the blue, definitely use something a little bit more firmly pressed. Now, my only complaint about the blue, actually a few of these shades, they're a little bit more powdery, but the blue being as dark as it is, I have had some fallout with this shade just because it is a little bit powdery. And when you dip a brush into the pan, it does, a little bit of that powder dust does kind of travel to the nearby shades. So just something to note. That one is just a little bit messier, but it's not like super messy. It's not an issue or anything like that, but it is just something to note. So yeah. And then moving on to the chocolate brown. I love this. I think it's a classic medium tone milk chocolate brown, really beautiful. And it's pretty much just a neutral brown. It's not really cool or warm. It's really pretty. We do have a little bit of that golden top coat in there as well, but it's not that noticeable. And I just think it's a really nice palette. So for the eye look, I wanted to kind of use the blue more as an accent. So I did start with the blue and I went over it with the blue again towards the end, just so I could kind of map out where the blue was going. But I have to say, I really like it as an accent color. It's a nice bright shade, but it's not, like electric blue or anything like that, which I think is also gorgeous, but a completely different look. All of the shadows perform really well. Everything blends together nicely. Again, the only one that I don't love is that ivory shade, just because I think it just doesn't look quite as smooth as the other shadows. So I just feel like that one's just a little chalkier, but it's not necessarily a bad shade per se. So it's just not a great shade. So overall, I'd have to say I do really like this palette. I like the color story. I think it's really fun. I love having all of these neutrals that I could use on a daily basis. And then if I wanted to just brighten up with a pop of blue, that's great. Can definitely go and do like a blue smoky eye with this as well. You know, really depends what you want. That blue with the deeper brown next to it, those two are gorgeous together. And I just think there are a lot of options with this. So I think it's a really nice palette. Moving on to the highlighter. So Dior came out with these Dior Forever highlighters, was it last year or the year before? But I passed on them at the time. And this one here is limited edition. It's 002 Coral Cruise. We have 6 grams of product with a 1-year shelf life, and it's made in Italy. I have to say, I think it's a really nice highlighter. However, it is a glittery highlighter. So if you are somebody who is not looking for that, you know, I would probably stay away from this one. It has a metallic finish. You're not going to see huge chunks of glitter, but you definitely see like a little bit of that. Like there's some micro glitter in there, and the overall appearance of this is just a little bit metallic looking. Now, I think it's really nice, and I like the way when you shift, you can either see a little bit gold or a little bit more rose gold. So I think it's a really beautiful shade, but to me, it's more of a rose gold with a touch of coral than a true coral. Now, as for application, I did one side with the Refer 20, a fan brush, very light, soft application. You can use this for a highlight, but if you want like kind of a glowy blush, you know, just using the fan brush in the other direction, so you're getting the longer edge along the cheek, you know, you could just swipe that on top of your blush and really turn that into a little bit more of a glowy blush. And I think it looks really beautiful like that. Gives you kind of this soft finish. So I think a fan brush is a great application for this. If you'd like to see a little bit more of that highlighter look, then on the other side, I use the Sonia G detail brush from the Lotus set. And this one's going to be giving you a slightly heavier application. You can see a little bit more of that metallic finish. It's just a little bit more oomph to it. And again, a really beautiful shade. If you have fair skin, you could totally buff this highlighter into your skin and use it as a soft, glowy blush. I have to say, I really do like all 3 of the items I picked up from this collection. I think the summer collection in general, at least the ones that I picked up, are just a really great collection of neutrals with some pops. I love this blue in here, and I love how the blue, you know, the gray base on there is a very soft gray, so it still reads more blue than a blue gray. And I really appreciate that. I think, you know, it's actually a very well done blue. So I paired this with, you know, some items that I have and love from Dior that, you know, for example, my blush is discontinued. This is my favorite Dior blush. It's 361. I think it was called Mi Fiore, but this is the one that had the beautiful like garden embossing. And then I paired it with the Lip Maximizer from Dior in the permanent line 006, which is one of my favorites. I wear this one. It's probably the Lip Maximizer I use the most. So let's go ahead and move on to some comparisons, and we're actually going to start with the highlighter. So I want to start off with, this is the Guerlain Meteorites Pearl Dust palette. This is an older item now, but I did want to, it's one of my all-time favorites, so I did want to compare that. So we have the shade here, which is Pearly Amber, and then let's also take a look at Pearly Pink. So we got those two here. Let's put them right there. And it's closer to Pearly Amber, but you can see Pearly Amber is still going to have a bit more orange in it. And then this is Peach Light from Tom Ford. So let's go ahead and take a look at both of these colors. I'm still really loving this highlighter, by the way. Really great. You can see that the lighter shade has a little bit more pink in it, and it's a little bit too light. This deeper shade's a little bit deeper, but the tone is fairly similar. Now, between the two, though, you can see that we have a little bit more of a color shift with the Dior. Plus, we have a little bit more of that like gold glitter in there compared to the Tom Ford. They both have a little bit of a metallic finish, but the Dior is going to be more glittery. All right, and then I also wanted to take a look at a couple Westman Atelier. These are the super loaded tinted highlighters. And this one here is Peau de Santé. And yeah, these are a cream product, but I wanted to compare them anyway because of the color. Oh, that's going to be too pink. This one here is Peau de Rosé. And yeah, this is going to be too pink as well, too cool. And then let's look at Peau de Pêche. I think this one's going to be too much of a like nude shade here, but let's go ahead and take a look. Yep. And that's going to be it for the highlighter comparisons. I'm going to remove these and then let's go ahead and do some eyeshadow swatches. So most of the shades in the palette are ones you probably already have. So we're going to kind of focus on the blues to start off with. This is the Guerlain. This is the palette Summer Jean. This is their summer collection. So let's take a look at how this blue compares. And you can see the difference. The Guerlain's going to be brighter. They both do have a similar finish, but the Dior is going to be just a little bit softer and lighter. And you have a little bit more gray in there. So it's just a little bit more subtle. Next, let's take a look at Surratt Minuit. And we'll see how that compares. And here's that. That's going to be closer, but you can see that there's not really that gray base. The Surratt is more of a true blue. And yeah, you don't really have a gray or black base to it. This is another Surratt shade. This is called DOW. And this is going to be more of a true navy. But I did want to compare that because you can see this does have the black base. And yeah, you can see this is definitely going to be deeper and more black than the Dior shade, but yeah, they do have some similarities there. Moving on to the Dior Denim palette, we're going to take a look at this blue, and it's not really going to be the best match here, but you can see it's a little bit deeper. This is more navy. And then last up for the blues, this is one of the velvet palettes that came out last year. This is 189 Blue Velvet. So let's see how these three shades compare. And this is the lightest. You can see that's going to be much lighter. And then we kind of have this like Wedgwood blue shade. That's going to be our closest. But this is more blue. And these are going to be a velvet matte formula. So this has a very, very subtle sheen to it. So the finish will be a little different. This is probably our closest match. And then last up, we have a really deep navy, almost black. Now, next up, I want to look at the peach. So we're looking at this shade here with this shade in 629 Coral Paisley. This is another one of the velvet palettes that came out last year. And this is the shade that it made me think of right away. But you can see this is going to be a little bit more orange. It doesn't have that beige in there. And you do have a bit of a stronger satin sheen to it. But it's a fairly close shade. Next, this is 559 Poncho. So we're going to take a look at this shade with the peach, but then we're going to take a look at the brown as well. So let's go ahead. Let's just swatch all of Poncho here so we can kind of see that one. And we're going to put this one down here at the bottom. This is the middle shade there. You can see this is going to be a lot softer, a little bit warmer than that in Eden Rock. And these are the bottom two shades. And yeah, you know, I'd say that this last shade is kind of a cross in between those bottom two shades. It's pretty close. I'd say it's a little closer to this one here. The peach really, again, this is going to be more orange. It's more of a metallic finish than that in Eden Rock. But again, color-wise, you know, it's still close enough. And then I want to take a look at these two here, the top and the bottom, in 469 Atelier Doré. This was one of the holiday palettes maybe a year or two ago. And let me go ahead and swatch the two Eden Rock shades here too. So these are Eden Rock. And you can see here that these are both going to be a little bit lighter and they have slightly more warmth than Atelier Doré. This is definitely going to be a lot cooler with more of a gray base to it. And last up, we have 669 Soft Cashmere. We're going to look at these three shades here. and see how they compare to the browns in the Eden Rock palette. So taking a look at all three of these, we'll put them right here so we can kind of see them right with these swatches from Eden Rock. And you can see that this shade here, which is the middle shade, is going to be fairly close to the middle shade in Eden Rock. These other two are going to be much cooler though. And before I go, I just want to show you the bag that everything came in from Dior. So this is probably just around for a limited time, either for, I don't know if it's for Mother's Day in particular or what, but they typically do a Mother's Day pattern packaging that sells out pretty quickly. So if you are interested in getting a bag or box with this particular pattern, it's just something to know. I love saving these and reusing them. I think they are gorgeous. Every year there's a slightly different design, but really a beautiful, beautiful print. So I hope that gives you a good idea of how these colors will fit into your collection, if this is something that you need or you can easily pass on. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope this was helpful. I have to say that I do really like these particular items that I picked up, and I'm excited to see what comes next. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day.